So hello friends, hi everyone. Thank you for joining yet another day of Kumi now and our meetings. We are looking really forward for today's meeting. For this week, on the 5th, we celebrate Palestinian Child Day, Palestinian Children Day. And for this week, we thought since it is going to be focused on our loving children of Palestine, DCI is one of the organizations that mainly focuses on children. They promote and protect the human rights of Palestinian children. So we invited them to give us a speak for 20, 30 minutes. And we have with us Professor Ustaz Ayed, who is basically going to be speaking with us on Palestinian children as well, from the expertise of DCI, what they have documented so far, and maybe even more. Ayed is an accountability program director at DCI, and Ayed, the floor is yours. The questions will be asked later after we finish, and we have a couple of minutes left for questions. So,
Okay, thank you a lot for the opportunity to brief you about the situation of Palestinian children's rights in the Palestinian occupied territories. Actually, as you said, now we are trying to mark the Palestinian Child Day, and unfortunately, this year, the situation of Palestinian children is very difficult, whether in the West Bank or in the Gaza Strip. So far, the number of casualties as a result of the Israeli aggression against Gaza Strip is over than 3,000 Palestinian children who were killed. And actually, I'll try to be the voice of the voiceless Palestinian children who are trapped in this insane military assault. So at the beginning of the Israeli war waged against Gaza, a journalist interviewed a Palestinian child, and the journalist asked the child, why you are upset? The response of the child was that the Israelis destroyed our home. So the journalist responded, so what? You will build a new one. The child added that they killed my father. So the journalist responded that you should be proud, your father is a martyr. The child responded, they killed my mother too. At this point, the journalist ran out of word because, and this is the situation faced by many Palestinians in Gaza Strip who lost their families, hopes, schools, homes. Almost they lost everything as a result of the Israeli offensive against Palestinians who are living in Gaza. So the idea here, I'd like to stress the fact that history didn't start on the 7th of October 2023. Before that date, there was a history of oppression and subjugation from the Israeli authorities against Palestinians who are living in the West Bank and in Gaza Strip. And after that, there is a history of atrocities that Israel committed against Palestinians who are living in the West Bank and Gaza, which led to the killing of thousands of Palestinian children and injuring many more, whether in the West Bank or Gaza Strip. Actually, now we at this week we're supposed to celebrate the Palestinian Children Day, and since here, instead of mentioning the achievement that we as organization achieved in order to create a protective environment for Palestinian children who are living in the occupied territories, unfortunately, we are mentioning the violation against Palestinian children, which led to the depriving them from their rights, from mainly their right to life, liberty, education, healthcare, and many other rights. Actually, the organization, as you said, Wasim, it's a child rights organization. Our role is to document, protect, and advocate for the rights of Palestinian children. The DCI Palestine established more than 30 years ago. And the main purpose of the organization was to represent Palestinian children before the Israeli military court system. And this was during the first Intifada, where many Palestinian children were arrested, incarcerated, and prosecuted in military court system that lack fair trial guarantees. And unfortunately, until that time, until now, we are doing the same job. But we expanded the work that we are doing because at some point we reach the conclusion that almost it's impossible to maintain justice through the Israeli military legal system, because the whole system was not designed to maintain justice, but to suppress and control people who are living under the Israeli occupation. So we started to document violation against Palestinian children, mainly the issue of ill treatment and torture that Palestinian children exposed to. And since that time until now, we came to the conclusion that almost all Palestinian children who are arrested and interrogated by the Israeli authorities exposed to at least one form of ill treatment and torture, because the whole system was built on depriving Palestinian children from their rights. And the other thing that we concentrate on, it's the right for fair trial guarantees. In the Israeli military legal system, there is no fair trial guarantees for Palestinian children who are passing through the system, despite the fact that Israel is state party to the Convention on the Rights of the Child and many other UN human rights conventions. But when it comes to the rights of Palestinian children under the Israeli obligation, under Israeli occupation, Israel argued that these conventions are not applicable to people who are living under occupation. So we started to document the issue of ill treatment and torture, lack of fair trial guarantees, and the other thing, it's the arbitrary detention of Palestinian children, mainly the issue of imposing administrative detention orders against Palestinian children. And since the beginning of last year, we noticed that there was spike in imposing administrative detention orders against Palestinian children. And this practice has been escalated during this year, and now almost 40% of Palestinian children who are in the Israeli prison now, they are under administrative detention orders, which is detention without charges, without court proceedings, despite the fact that we regard that all the Israeli military legal system is arbitrary by default, but the issue of imposing administrative detention orders against Palestinian children clarify and show the arbitrariness of the system in a very strike way. Because the administrative detention orders is issued by the military commander of the area based on secret evidence. And these secret evidence are not disclosed to the child or to his lawyer. So it's almost impossible for the child lawyer to provide proper legal defense, because whenever the lawyer tried to refute the evidence against the child or to provide a proper legal defense, the response of the child and the prosecutor that this is part of the secret file that we can't expose. During the past 4 months or 6 months or so, the situation inside Israeli prisons deteriorated more and more. And now the problem that we do not know a lot about what's going on in the Israeli prison system, because now the lawyer visits are very restricted. Also, families are not allowed to visit their sons inside the Israeli prisons. And also the court sessions are taking place through a video link. So almost there is no communication between the prisoners, among them children, and the outside world. But the information that we get from released prisoners, that the situation inside Israeli prisons is very awful. The Israeli prison authority, they practice all types of harsh treatment against prisoners. They deprive them from many rights. They do not provide them with proper food and medication. Before, prisoners used to buy from their own money in order to compensate the shortage of food and necessities, but now the prison authorities do not allow Palestinian prisoners, among them children, to receive money in order to compensate the shortage of food and the important necessities for them, because before the prison authority used to provide the prisoners with very limited space and mattress, and the prisoners themselves, they spend from their own monies in order to buy food and whatever needed. But now this issue has been stopped from the Israeli authorities. When it comes to prisoners from Gaza, among them children, almost we do not have any piece of information. And there were many attempts from Palestinian human rights organization, Israeli human rights organization, in order to know about where prisoners from Gaza are incarcerated, how they are treated, about their whereabouts. And Hamukir, the Israeli organization, submitted many petitions to the Israeli Supreme Court in order to know about prisoners from Gaza Strip, and all these petitions has been dismissed without providing any information about prisoners from Gaza. But the information leaked from released prisoners from Gaza, it tells, this information tells very awful stories about how they are treated from the Israeli authorities. And many reported that they were or their friends exposed to field interrogation and investigation, and after that they were shot at and killed. So despite the fact that the situation of child prisoners from the West Bank is very difficult at these times, but the situation of child prisoners from Gaza, it's more difficult, and the problem that nobody knows anything about how they are treated, where they are incarcerated, about their whereabouts. The only piece of information that we know about child prisoners from Gaza that appeared in the statistics of the Israeli prison service at the end of December 2023, where they mentioned that there were 10 prisoners who are classified as unlawful combatant, and this category is applicable for people from Gaza Strip. And this number do not reflect the number of child prisoners from Gaza, because the majority of them are incarcerated and placed in prisons not under the Israeli prison service, but under the supervision of the Israeli army, where we don't know the location of these prisons. There are some information that there is near Jerusalem or Ramallah, a military camp called Anatot, where they incarcerated female prisoners. There is another military camp in the Negev desert, incarcerated prisoners from Gaza, and some are placed in Hasharon under the Israeli prison service supervision. But our information about the prisoners in general from Gaza, among them children, is almost very limited, and we don't know anything about them, and the Israeli authorities are not willing to release any information about their situation. The other right that the organization tried to document, it's the right to life. Between the year 2002 and October 2023, we documented the killing of more than 2,300 Palestinian children, and most importantly, the situation of killing Palestinian children. The most important thing or conclusion that we reached, that Israel do not abide to its legal obligation under international humanitarian law or human rights law when it comes to the right of Palestinian children. And this has clarify the number of Palestinian children killed by the Israeli authorities. The majority of children killed during that period were from Gaza Strip, especially during military invasion against the Gaza Strip, where we used to say that Israel employed what's so-called Dahya Doctrine and Hannibal Directive. And these military tactics, it's a stark violation with international humanitarian law, because whenever the Israeli authorities activate the Dahya Doctrine, this means to target civilian areas in a very intensive manner, regardless the number of civilians who may be killed as a result of targeting this area. And this was and is still part of the Israeli military strategy against whenever Israel launch any military assault against Gaza Strip. And now it's clear that this is what Israel is practicing in Gaza now, targeting civilians, civilian infrastructure, and like hospitals, schools, evacuation centers. At the beginning of the war, Israel tries to justify or the targeting of these places, like when they targeted Al-Mamadani Hospital. So at the beginning, they said that it's not the Israeli missile that target that place, and the spokesman of the Israeli army tried to provide proofs that it's not the Israeli army, but Now, as we noticed, they do not care. They do not care about anything. They target civilian areas, civilian infrastructure, hospitals. Shifa hospital during the last period was invaded and targeted twice, which led to leave it operational at this time. And the same happened to many hospitals in Gaza Strip and health centers and schools and evacuation places. So the Israeli army and the Israeli government at this point, they do not care about the international community like before, but before they used to provide justifications in order to convince the world that these are collateral damage, but during this military assault, they don't care about anything. There are many videos that shows the Israeli drones or soldiers killing Palestinians who are civilians when they were practicing their normal daily life, but they don't care about the international community. And before we used to say that Israel do what it does because there is no enough pressure from the international community to put in Israel to abide to its legal obligation under international humanitarian law and international human rights law. And the problem now that the international community is complicit in the crimes that Israel is committed, because since the beginning of this military assault and carnage against Gaza, Israel received support from many governments around the world in the form of diplomatic, political, military, financial support, which give the green light for Israel to continue its atrocities against Palestinian people. And now Israel is threatening to invade Rafah that hosts more than 1.4 million Palestinian people. And in case Israel start this military operation against Rafah, the number of casualties among Palestinians, among them children, will rise dramatically. So we believe that now it's important for all humans around the world to lobby in order to stop the genocide and war crimes against Palestinian people who are living in Gaza, because all international human rights standards and principles, it's on stake as a result of the gap between these principles and its implementation on the ground. So this is the situation facing Palestinian children in Gaza, and the situation in the West Bank is not better, because since October 2023 until the end of the year 2023, we documented the killing of 81 Palestinian children in the West Bank, including East Jerusalem. And since the beginning of this year, we documented the killing of more than 30 others. The information that we received from the ground that Israel do not abide to any of the principles of protecting children during its operations in the occupied Palestinian territories. And it's our role to lobby our governments in order to put an end to all these violations against children, regardless whether in Palestine or wherever in the world. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Shahid. I'm sure there's a lot of information that people. I'm seeing some of the messages how it was very informative. If anyone does have a question, please either raise your hand or you could put it on the chat. I already saw one question. it was rhetorical, but it is something that it's good to understand. A question is, based on a lot of the information you just shared, is ICJ, is it aware of all this? And if yes, is it direct from you? What's the process?
I didn't get the question right, Salim. What
Is,
the women?
is ICJ aware of the information you just shared?
Mhm. I think that South Africa in its briefing for the ICJ provide all the information about the Israeli crimes during the period that preceded issuing its ruling. I think that they are aware of all these things, and that's why they issued a provisional ruling that Israel should implement. But the problem that so far Israel didn't implement. On the contrary, they intensified their crimes against Palestinian during their military offensive in Gaza. And this is because there is no political will from the international community to punish Israel for all these atrocities and crimes.
Okay. Anyone else have any questions? One question, how can people internationally, how can they help? How best can we help to end this other than letting our MPs know, raising awareness and praying? Is there any other ways that people internationally can help?
Mhm. And I think that during the last 6 months, there was a change in the government positions towards what's going on in the occupied Palestinian territories. And this is because the demonstrations that filled many cities in order to support the Palestinian people. So at the beginning, everybody was or all governments were speaking about the right of Israel to defend itself, but now we start to see different position from even these governments, and this is because of the demonstration and the awareness raising among ordinary people about what's going on in the region. At the beginning, people just viewed what happened on the 7th of October and saw Israel as a victim. But now they are seeing the crimes that Israel is committing against Palestinians, whether in the West Bank or in Gaza. So it's important for ordinary people to participate in demonstrations in order to pressure their governments to take principled stance towards what's going by the Israeli authorities against Palestinian people. So we believe that ordinary people who appoint their political leaders and their voice may make the change. So it's important to keep on demonstrating, pressuring government in order to take a position and to put an end to the atrocities committed against Palestinian people, among them children.
May I ask a question? I don't know how many of the people know, but I saw some related questions a little bit to a question that I have, which I, as a Palestinian, want to know more about this something specific. Is it right that there is a difference on when we say Palestinian children and the age of a child, specifically within the Israeli military? I don't know if you understand my question correctly.
Mhm.
What I know is there's a usually we know internationally the child is 17 and under. I think under the Israeli military law, it's different.
Actually, there was two ages of majority. One under the Israeli military legal system, which is applicable to Palestinian people, and one under the Israeli civilian system, which is applicable to Israeli children. But at some point, as a result of the mounting international criticism to the Israeli practices, and it was very easy to show discrimination through providing this very simple example. Israel raised the age of majority under its military legal system from 16 to 18. So now, in theory, Palestinian children and Israeli children are defined as everybody below the age of 18, while in practice, despite the fact that Israel in the year 2011 raised the age of majority for Palestinian children from 16 to 18, but Israel or Israeli military legal system didn't provide Palestinian children with any new rights. So in theory, they define the child as this, but in practice, they are treating Palestinian children in the Israeli military legal system as adults. There is no special protection for Palestinian children. They exposed almost to the same treatment. They appear before the same military legal system, despite the fact that Israel introduced what's so-called the Israeli juvenile military courts. But since its inception in the year 2011 until now, we are monitoring the conduct of the Israeli juvenile military courts. And we came to the conclusion that military juvenile courts, it's like the military courts, but the main purpose of introducing the juvenile military courts is to lead the international community up a blind alley to show that they are doing something in order to improve the situation of juveniles who appear before this court, while in fact they are treating the same. And during the last 6 months, there were some protection that afforded to minors before the Israeli military legal system, but now there is no protection whatsoever. For example, before there was age categories for appearing before a military court judge. For children below the age of 14, they should appear before a military court judge within 24 hours. For children who are 14 and under 16 within 36 hours. For 48 hours for children who are 16 and under 18 within 72 hours. But since October, all children appear before a military court judge within 8 days. So there's no special protection for any group of children under the Israeli military legal system.
I know we have a couple of, I'm seeing a little bit of more questions. I just want to make sure we still have time. Ton, do we have time or is it now?
Yeah, we can have one more question, I think, and then we can transition to the action.
Okay. There's one question I see right in front of me. Are the people in Israel aware of those atrocities?
Then I think that the Israeli government tried to market what they are doing in the occupied territories as for the own good of the Israelis who are living in Tel Aviv. because they want to convince them that what they are doing, it's for their own good, for their security, and Israel justify all these practices under the pretext of security. And here it's important to know that security, it's not a neutral mission. It's part and parcel of the ideology of the state. And in Israel, militarization almost it's everywhere, not just in the occupied Palestinian territories, but even in Tel Aviv and in all Israeli cities. And everybody who visited the area for the first time can feel it, that there is militarization, and Israel is built on militarizing everything. And its leaders who established the Israel state put it in a very blunt way, that one of them said that we are a group of settlers, and without the combat helmet or the barrel of the gun, we can't build a house or plant a tree. So militarization, it's everywhere. And the Israeli government is trying to show that all what they are committing in the occupied Palestinian territories, it's for the own good of the Israeli citizens.
Just to clarify for everyone, because I sent Ayed the link. Unfortunately, because of time, we couldn't change his name, so it appeared as my name, Salim. But Ayed from DCI, Ayed Ktesh, right? Abu Ktesh. Yes. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thanks for DCI. I personally did have the privilege to work the last 2 years with DCI as a consultant, and I was very fascinated of how much documentation, well documentation of many things, and the work they do is in a, as we say, top notch. It's very well done. I know that you have been persecuted as DCI with some other organizations by Israel and Israeli military because of the good work and the great work DCI and some other more organizations they do here in Palestine. So thank you so much. Thank you for your time. I know you're traveling, so we really all appreciated that you, even amidst your traveling, you did have the time for us. And we wish you good luck in your time and your travels, safe travels as well. And yeah, we will continue our second part of the call, but thank you, Ayed.
Okay, so for the last portion of Kumi, I'll just quickly cover some actions that we will be requesting people to do this week. So following the action from last week, Canada again has in the few weeks ago passed a non-binding motion to end arms sales to Israel. It doesn't mean that the government will support the ban, but we still want to encourage other governments. This week alone, the United States has already sent billions of dollars and weapons to Israel. So we want to continue encouraging other governments to add pressure and adopt similar measures to end arms sales. So Kumi Action has a graphic that we created last week, and we have it on our social media accounts. So feel free to download that, share it with your networks. And if you have politicians, if you're based in Canada, or even if you are based elsewhere and have local politicians, email them about the measure that Canada has taken and encourage them to work for that in their own parliaments. For Canada specifically, there's an event on April 6th with Community Peacemakers team Fossil Fools Day, April 6th. So join them in calling out the Royal Bank of Canada on their toxic investments in fossil fuels, weapons, manufacturing, human rights abuses, and genocide at home and around the world. And this includes the Coastal GasLink pipeline violating indigenous rights and weapons and surveillance technology that is being used to commit genocide in Palestine right now. And so there's also a link for that Ryan is sharing in the chat. If you're in the US, there is also a link from CMEP. That was the call to action from Saturday's Easter Vigil. If you attended that or if you participated in the Holy Week with Gaza. So if you could click on that link if you're in the US and sign that letter, that would be great. And then if you're based in Europe, Palestinians have called for a boycott of this year's Eurovision Song Contest because of the refusal of its organizers to expel Israel from the competition. So there's also a template letter to send to venues screening the contest to ask that they host alternative events instead. So these are some of the actions we have. We'll let everyone stay on for maybe 5 to 10 minutes in case there are any questions. But otherwise, thank you everyone for coming. Okay, so I hope everyone has completed or at least started the actions. Remember that all of our actions and information about Kumi can be found on Sabil's newsletter and then also Kumi Now website. And then if you have any actions you want to share with Kumi, like feel free to send it in the chat or send us an email. So thank you everyone. We appreciate all your work and for you guys attending every week. Thank you.